Hi everyone, Karen here from Dogs Love. I wanted to make a little video today to help you understand why my method is so successful and also to clear up some commonly misunderstood things in the dog training world around the dog psychology. So let's start with the science. What we know about dogs is that they are 99.96% the same DNA as wolves. So in order to understand how dogs think, their instincts, how they operate, how we communicate with them, we need to understand how the wolf pack operates. So this lends itself to the discussion around leadership, which is one of the particular things I wanted to sort of get into. So with the wolves, yes, they are pack animals and they have leaders and followers. It's just like a human family. It's usually mum and dad at the top and then litters and parts thereof down below. Now the wolves are very clever, so they can coordinate their hunts and they work together. It's not a free-for-all. So in order for that to work, you have to have good leaders and willing followers. So in the dog world, you're either the leader or you're a willing follower, and your job is to please the leader. Now, the problems that have sort of come about in the misunderstandings here is actually based on an experiment done back in the 1940s, where they put a bunch of wolves together. They were all from all different families and packs, and they put them in an enclosure that was too small. And what they saw was a lot of dominance and aggression. But observing the wolves in that way is trying to understand humans by watching Big Brother. It's just that not their natural environment. But unfortunately, a whole load of training techniques came out of this badly designed experiment where we use force and domination and scare our dog into obeying us, basically. And then what we've said, well, we don't like that. So there was a bunch of trainers that came along and said, let's just use positive reinforcement. And this is a term from educational psychology where we reward the behavior that we want repeated. But what we've missed here is that dogs do need leaders. But that old school of yank and crank style training, they went about establishing leadership the wrong way because of this badly designed experiment. So what my method is based on is when you observe the wolves in their natural environment, you see that there's specific situations where the leaders behave differently from the followers. And it's these leadership behaviors that we can put in place as humans to convince our dogs that we're in charge. And the dogs really want us to be in charge because, believe me, they do not want to be in charge in the human world. Typical example, a lot of little dogs, all those yappy dogs that everyone hates, these little dogs are behaving in this way. And if they were a big dog, that behaviour would have had to have been addressed. But because they're little and they're not causing much damage, the behaviours don't get addressed. The poor little dogs think that they're in charge because we're giving them all the wrong messages about who's in charge. And those little dogs are really stressed out. So imagine if you were thrown into the wilderness and told to look after a pack of wolves. How would you feel? Well, I don't know how to hunt. I don't know how to find water. I'd be pretty stressed out. So our dogs definitely don't want to be in charge. They want us to be in charge. So while some people are saying that the whole leadership and alpha thing has been debunked, what's actually been debunked is the way that we establish leadership by using force and aggression and fear and dominance. That's not how the wolves operate. The wolves are actually very kind and gentle to their pack members. And the dominance aggression is what you see is the exception rather than the rule. When a wolf pup is bugging mum and mum's got jobs to do, she's always on alert because she's a leader, she doesn't immediately go, "Rah, rah, rah, rah." That's the last sort of step the wolves go to. They're actually very gentle. The first subtle thing they'll do is they'll just ignore it. They might get up and walk away. They might, sort of give them a look or maybe an air snap but they'll use the kindest method they can to communicate to the puppy, don't bother me right now. And that's how the techniques that I show you work. So I hope that's cleared things up a little bit. You'll see anyone that's had more than one dog in a family will have observed that they do establish one's above the other. So they absolutely do have a hierarchy. But the way that we achieve that, the way that we become leaders in the dog world, is to look at those very specific behaviours, and they've got nothing to do with telling your dog off or telling it to sit or anything like that. It's far more subtle, and it's completely kind and gentle, and I'd love to share them with you. And I love to help people and dogs. So if you've got a problem dog, or you want to understand just a bit more about dog psychology, I'm happy to talk to you for free on the phone. But I really wanted to make it clear that we don't achieve leadership by being dominant and aggressive and forceful with our dogs. We achieve it in a very kind and gentle way. But make no mistake, it is absolutely essential that our dogs have a human leader that is kind and gentle and that understand the human world and that know how to communicate with our dogs in their language. Hi everyone, Karen from Dogs Love. This is a follow-up video to the one that I just made about what your dog really needs from you. And we were talking about leadership. So this video is sort of going to be about who's really in charge around here. So the first thing that I want to mention is that the dogs don't, I said in the last video, the dogs don't want to be in charge. But what perhaps I didn't make as clear is that the dogs know, because their instinct is to be a leader or to please the leader, the dogs know that their pack won't do very well if they don't have a good leader or if they don't have anyone in charge. So the dogs know that their instinct tells them someone needs to be in charge. So here's the problem. If us humans are not behaving like a leader in the dog's eyes, then the poor dog actually feels obligated to do it because they know someone has to do it. Now, as I said, the dog doesn't want the job, but it knows that someone has to do it. And this is where we see most dog problems come from, where humans, we're not born with dog psychology. It's not our fault that we don't understand the dog psychology. It's something that we can learn about, which is fabulous. It's so powerful. But yeah, in a lot of homes, the dogs actually do kind of think they're in charge. And some of the problems that we see with that is things like separation anxiety, jumping all over people, climbing all over the couches, even though you've told them no a dozen times. So I wanted to talk about some of those things. Now, before I go into that, I just want to touch on temperament. So dogs have varying temperaments, same as we humans do. So they'll have temperament axes from fearful to confident. They'll have variations in intelligence. There's sort of some breed specific things might come through. For example, you'll often find that a working dog will challenge you more than some other types of dogs. Often it's just because they're a bit more intelligent. It might be because they've got a more sort of dominant style personality. So like humans, again, it's that temperament axis from dominant to submissive. We all somewhere along that scale. So a lot of people will manage with their dogs without knowing how to exactly be a leader in the dog's eyes, and that's wonderful. That is absolutely fabulous. And this will be when you've got maybe a human in the home that's got a quite sort of leadership type confidence and self-assuredness about them, which is great, and the dog may respect them as leaders even though they break all the rules that I teach people. But not all of us can sort of pull that off. So let me talk about just a few things you might see when you've got a problem with leadership in the home. So first off, let's look at from the puppy stage. So puppies will kind of take leadership from anybody because, you know, they're like little kids. As a little kid, you sort of take leadership from your parents. But as you get to be a teenager and your brain development, you know, has gone on that far, you start to sort of push the boundaries, and that's what the dogs do. So as a bit of a guide, at around 6 months of age, the wolves join the hunt. And that gives us a bit of an idea of when they go into that teenage period. So often people will have the puppy that's, you know, they've been great. My puppy's so good, he's learned all these commands. And then I get a call, the puppy's 7 months old and everything's just gone haywire. So what's happened is that puppy is now saying, are you really in charge? I'm not sure, I'm going to test you out a little bit. And if we don't know how to respond to that and how to behave as a leader in the dog's eyes, the poor dog kind of thinks they've got to take on this responsibility of being, taking care of everybody, being responsible for the property. And some of the things you might see are separation anxiety. So separation anxiety is a wildly misunderstood concept in dog training at the moment, unfortunately. But if you think about a dog that thinks they're in charge, and all of the humans leave the house. So they've left the safety of the pack, the den, the camp, and the dog's shut in the house or in the yard and it can't protect their pack. Imagine how panicked you would be if you had a toddler that locked you in the house and the toddler's gone running up towards the main road. You wouldn't sit down and have a biscuit and a cup of tea, just as your dog that thinks they've got to protect you isn't just going to be satisfied by a stuffed Kong or a snuffle mat. That dog is actually panicking because they can't protect you. Again, it's something that's solved by making sure that we can show the dog that actually we're in charge, we've got everything under control, you're safe and I can take care of myself. And that taps into our dog's instincts of being lower down in the pack and not having to worry. Something else that I talk to people a bit about, think about those dogs that climb up onto the top of the couch and look out the window all day. What is that dog doing? That dog is behaving like a leader that's got the responsibility of watching out for potential predators or prey. It's behaving like a leader. We don't really want to encourage that, and especially if we don't want dogs on our furniture anyway, which I do highly recommend. Think about the wolves in the wild. Who seeks height? It's the leaders, because they can see more, they smell more, they can hear more. So when your dog seeks height, yeah, the couch might be comfy, but that dog's also seeking height. And if we allow it to do that, we're giving it the wrong message. So this is not to say that you can't invite your dog up for cuddles on the couch or the bed, but that's the key difference, that you've invited them. They haven't just gone and done it themselves. Something else that we see is barking at stuff all over the place. So barking at danger, things that the dog thinks could potentially be dangerous. So it's not wrong. So even the lowest wolf in the pack will bark if they think something's dangerous. But then what will happen? The leaders will go and investigate. And if the leaders think it's a problem, of course they are going to start barking too. The whole pack will join in and the predator will run away. That's the idea. If the leader comes up and is not bothered, you think, oh, just a squirrel, I don't care about that. What are they going to do? Well, they're not going to shout, stop barking, fighter, are they? Because that's just like barking, joining in the barking. They're actually going to look and walk away from it. And that body language, it's so subtle, but our dogs pick up on that. It's like, oh, okay, mum and dad's had a look and they've decided it's nothing to worry about. Very subtle. Food. I see a lot of posts on Facebook about dogs leaving their food. Now, this is kind of a fundamental thing, so I'm not going to give the whole thing away. But think about if a younger wolf has dragged off a bit of a hind leg and he's munched on it and he walked away, how long will it sit there? Not very long, because someone else will get it. Right? So if you're a lower down dog and you walk away from the food, you lose it. But a leader knows that no one's going to steal their food. So if you've got a dog that leaves their food, that dog, maybe they're not hungry, maybe they don't like the food, maybe they've got an upset tummy, but that dog also may be behaving like a leader dog that's saving that as a stash for in case, there's no food for a while. It's really interesting when you look into what these behaviours actually mean to the dogs. That's not always going to be the case. Like I said, dog might not be hungry, dog might not like the food. The other thing that people see is when they've got an older dog in the home and they've brought in a younger dog, like a puppy, and they've got on really, really well for about 5 or 6 months. And then they've started fighting. Why is this happening? They've been fine, and now they're fighting. I'm, worried to leave them alone. What's happening is that younger dog has reached that 6 or 7 months of age and is now saying, I'm not sure that you older dog are a great leader. I'm going to challenge you a bit. An older dog's saying, well, no, I'm in charge here. And that's when you get in the fighting. And again, that's solved by making sure that the humans are in charge. They're not really, they don't care about who's second, third, fourth, and fifth. They might have a bit of a scuffle, but doesn't mean anything to them. But the leadership role is so important because the survival of their pack is based on having good leaders. So that's why you'll often see two dogs that got along while the younger dog was little, and now that younger dog's become a teenager and started to challenge them. So I hope this all makes sense. One thing that I am going to give away, there's a video on my website anyway. You know, I'm saying these things like, you know, don't let the dogs jump up on the couch, and, you know, don't let them be barking, and, you know, you might go and check and do all the right things and the dog might still bark. So dogs do need consequences. So one of the best consequences is just a timeout. It's very gentle, it's very kind. It just shows the dog, if you continue to jump up on the couch when I showed you I don't want you on the couch, then you're going to end up separated from the family and losing your freedom. Now, the timeout area should be a safe place, and you want to be nice and gentle and calm when you put them in there, because you don't want to make it a bad experience for them. They just get this gentle consequence that, oh, okay, you didn't respect your wishes, so now I'm getting separated. And I highly recommend that over any sort of shouting or yelling or telling them no or smacking them, because all of those things undermine our leadership. They sort of get in the way of this trust relationship we should have with our dogs. We really want our dogs to know that we're never going to hurt them or scare them. The same with our kids. So yeah, there is videos on my website about how to do timeout and how to help your dog learn to tolerate timeout. I think that's all that I wanted to discuss with you. Look, I hope that shed a bit of light on things. And as usual, happy to chat to people, love to help people, and ping me if you have any questions.